Joining us on Pirate Radio Live, what is he? He's the play-by-play voice of Tulane. He's the former fill-in host of Pirate Radio Live.
For one glorious week.
He is a former ECU play-by-play voice for baseball, and his name is Corey Gloor. Corey, good to talk with you, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Clip. It is Tulane ECU week, and it just brings so much energy and emotion for me personally. I can't speak for anyone else, but
we can feel it. We can feel it.
It radiates.
And actually, Corey, a pretty big game with two pretty good teams. So I am excited about that. I was looking at the AP Top 25, and Memphis is in, and South Florida is in, and North Texas and Navy are receiving votes. Anybody down there upset Tulane's not receiving a vote or two in that Top 25?
Maybe. I think, we were receiving votes after our win over Tulsa 2 weeks ago, and then we didn't play, and so now it just kind of dropped off the map. I think the view of the AP poll has certainly taken some dramatic turns this year for a lot of different reasons, and so I think now people are grasping onto the fact that it is cool marketing-wise, and I think that would be a nice push here, but this would not be new to Tulane to be in that poll. They had been receiving votes all year. I don't think anyone's too broken up over it, to be honest.
And, does it matter? I guess it doesn't matter if every group of five school that's in the poll receiving votes is in the same conference, because whoever wins the conference championship would be that team in the playoff. But if, Boise wins out, or if UNLV doesn't lose, or if something like that happens and you're up against one of those conference champions to get that final playoff spot, still obviously early, but I don't know, Corey, just the fact that, an East Carolina or a Tulane gets a shot at the playoff is exciting to me, and I want to, do everything I can if I'm one of those teams to put myself in a position to have an opportunity to do that in December.
These are where these Thursday night games, as frustrating as they might be for a lot of people, are big for the league and for the teams participating in them, because this is true national stage Thursday for these two teams. And there's only, I think, two other college football games that night, and it's not on Big Boy ESPN. And so this is where these showcases, and this is our first weeknight game of the year. We've got two more after this. I know ECU's got a run of Thursday games. But this is where these help and gets back on the radar here of the national media. And so these are opportunities to, I think, solidify what we have seen already in the first 6 weeks of the year, and that the quote unquote G5, G6, G40, however many conferences are in this now. The American's the best of that bunch. And so whomever is going to be playing for a conference championship that first Friday of December, the winner there is going to get a playoff spot. I think that's now pretty well set. I mean, UNLV, you mentioned they could run the table and have a case there. Boise, I'm not sure about that one because they've already got a loss to the American this year. So, but I think UNLV is the only other team that maybe has a real stake to the claim. But this league has had some major steps forward in the top half of the conference. That's, I think the drive is pretty clear. And I think now you've got, arguably 6 teams that could make a claim that they belong in that championship game at this point of the season. And that's pretty exciting right now for this league.
Corey, Tulane would be top 15 if they beat Ole Miss. Was the score of that game indicative of how the game went? Was that just a Rebel beatdown, or was it closer than the score indicated? What happened there?
No, it was what it was. I mean, it was that was a real beating, just to put it simply. I mean, it was a strange feeling there because I think Tulane knew that there was a path to at least be competitive and maybe even snake a win out of that one. That Ole Miss team has felt, at least structurally, a little bit different than their teams in the past. Now, what they have turned into is now a top 5 team by some metrics. And so that loss doesn't look as bad, but that was, the score was 45-10. That touchdown came in the last couple minutes of the fourth quarter. It was what it was. And so that was a bit of a recalibration for this group after what was a pretty emotional win over Duke the week before. and their quarterback coming in here in a sellout crowd. And so that was a little bit of a come to earth moment for this group. They got back on track at Tulsa the following week, and now I think they're pointed in a better direction from maybe where they were in Oxford a few Saturdays ago.
It was funny this offseason, Corey. We see the BYU quarterback, and he's in the news and ends up, leaving the school, and we say, all right, we avoid him. We get Bear Bachmeier instead at quarterback for BYU. He comes in here and plays a pretty dang good game on a Saturday night and beats East Carolina. And then we have to see Jake Retzloff anyway because he ends up at Tulane. And from what I understand, the folks down there are happy to have him because he's looked pretty good. How about the quarterback there, Corey, and the offense for the Green Wave so far this season?
He has been welcomed with open arms here at Tulane. And by and large, I think he's performed pretty well considering how late he was getting here. And now I think, at this point in the season, I do think John Summerall is wanting to see a little bit better effectiveness from him throwing the ball. It's been kind of hit and miss there for him. He had a really strong game against Duke a few weeks ago, and then Ole Miss, nobody had a good game. And then he was decent against Tulsa, but then kind of retreated the back half of that game. Him on the move has been his biggest weapon. I mean, he torched Duke with the RPO and had 4 touchdowns in that game. He has 7 rushing touchdowns this year. And so his mobility, I think, has been a little bit more of a surprise than they were expecting because he ran a little bit at BYU, but not to the level that he has been here. And so I do think Tulane is looking for a step forward from him throwing the ball after an off week. His receivers have, to be blunt, not helped him out a ton in this category. There's no real big go-to target in this receiving core and too many drops from this group already. And so I think that might be where the biggest improvement is needed right now, not necessarily with Retzloff throwing the ball, but he has proved to be a rather dynamic playmaker in dual threat roles. And so that combined with, Tulane's been pretty famous now of late of running 2 quarterbacks at times. That will happen again Thursday with Brendan Sullivan, the Iowa transfer, and he's actually the better guy on the run. So that will be part of Thursday's game plan. But by and large, for arriving on July 22nd, Retzloff has absorbed a good amount of what he's been asked to do and is maybe even doing a little bit more differently than maybe what we thought he would be coming into the year.
Corey Gloor joining us, play-by-play voice of the Tulane Green Wave. Corey, it would shock you and everybody else on the outside because it shocks all of us who cover it for our jobs that ECU's defense is the strength of this team so far this year. It's been wild, and we are still questioning the offense, even though they've been pretty good. I think we expected more out of that side and a lot less out of the defensive side. So how about when you're breaking this one down, Corey, are you surprised at all to see the numbers the ECU defense has put up so far this year?
I guess where I'm surprised with the effectiveness of the ECU defense is they're playing this well with how fast the offense moves. And so the fact that this is such a high-tempo offense, and that means the defense has to be ready almost at all times to take the field, and they're still performing as they are. On top of that, with how aggressive the ECU defense is and getting into the backfield, and they're sending guys left, right, and middle at all possible times, that type of defense can leave you susceptible down the field, and that really hasn't happened yet with ECU. So you combine those two things, and I do think that's a little bit surprising to me. But with what Blake Harrell had shown defensively in his time there, I'm not surprised that it's taken a step forward now that he oversees the show. The fact that they can keep up this type of effectiveness when it's a top 10 team in the nation in pace offensively, that I think is the biggest surprise.
Corey, Pirates looking to get the run game going, and it's been hit or miss, more miss, I think, than hit so far this year. Any chance that happens against Tulane? How's Tulane up front, and how about the defense as a whole?
So, I mean, it's funny. As the weeks go on, I ask certain players just keys to getting a win, all that stuff, and I ask anybody defensively, and it's stop the run. And Tulane is undefeated when John Summerall is the head coach when they win the rushing battle. Both this year and in his career, John Summerall has never lost a game as a head coach when his team outrushes the opponent. So it's that it's easy to say it's that simple, but it might just be that simple. I mean, it's like Tulane did a really, really good job on Tulsa's Dominic Richardson, who was a top 10 back in the nation coming into that game 2 Saturdays ago, held him to 48 yards. And they really controlled that game outside of Tulsa had a flea flicker early on for 51, and then just a breakdown in the secondary allowed for a pop pass touchdown to a tight end. Take those two plays out, they held Tulsa to 214 total yards. That defensive line, which was promoted as the strength of the team heading into the year, had a tricky non-conference slate. They only had 5 sacks and 15 tackles for loss in the first 4 games combined. They had 6 sacks and 13 tackles for loss against Tulsa. And so they took a huge step forward once conference play began. So it looked a little bit more like the defense we thought we were going to see. Now, they had a brutal non-conference schedule, and it's, I would say no slouch to ECU schedule, but maybe a step above what ECU just had to play in their non-conference slate with Duke, with a big Northwestern offensive line, with Ole Miss and what they do, and an okay South Alabama team. Seeing a team like Tulsa, I think, they finally had the edge physically and speed-wise on the defensive line. With how fast ECU moves and how fast they are athletically, we'll see if that edge still exists on that defensive front. But they looked like what we thought they would look like at Tulsa, stopping the running game, and that led to a pretty comfortable win.
And, brought up Duke a couple of times. That Duke win, the win over Duke for Tulane, looking more impressive as the weeks go on. They have been on quite a nice run since that loss. So that speaks to what Tulane is, especially at home. And our buddy Todd Graffinini, I remember seeing him before the Duke game, put out something on social media saying, man, it's so cool to see locals and friends and folks around the area get so excited about a Tulane football game because, as you know, Corey, even going back well before your time, it's been tough to get fans excited down there about Tulane football. I know they were jazzed up for the Duke game with Mensa coming back. How about this one? Are you expecting a decent atmosphere coming up on Thursday?
I know tickets are still available. I think what will happen here is that the student section is going to be pretty well filled up for this game, and that when that happens, then it ripples throughout the crowd here, regardless of if it's sold out. The fact that you're right, that Duke game was a conflation of a lot of things, and it felt like outside of when this team has hosted conference championship games here over the last few years, that was the first really major college football feeling environment that I've experienced here. Not just the sellout, but there was a real anger and emotion about that game, which, I mean, that's a fun part of college football when it's done well and doesn't go over the top. And there was a real, letting Darian Mensa know that we didn't miss him feel to that fan base a few weeks ago. And they didn't. And then wound up winning that game. So how that translates to Thursday, I think there's still a little bit of an education process happening, just a small amount with the fan base right now that I think are still remembering the Ole Miss loss more than anything and how deflating that was, but explaining to people that if this team does what we hope they can do in conference play, then that Ole Miss loss changed absolutely nothing about the goals of this team, and that is playing for a conference title and maybe getting into the playoff. That's all still very much on the table. And so whether that means this is sold out on Thursday, I don't think it's going to be sold out. You guys just had a Thursday night game and SportsCenter was there. That's going to happen here this week as well. And so that's going to drum up a lot more interest. But I can say this, for my time here, that the students buying in to what's happened here has made this environment feel a heck of a lot better than what it was before, even if the paid seats are not sold out.
Corey Gloor joining us, and we're recording this on a Monday ahead of Game 2 of the NLDS. We'll go ahead and throw it up on YouTube today, right, Jared? We'll probably air this on the radio on Wednesday ahead of Game 3 of the NLDS. So, Corey, what will the series look like heading to Game 3, heading to Chicago?
I mean, as we sit here Monday prior to what is a really late first pitch on a Monday.
9:08 Eastern. Wow.
Yeah, 8:08 my time. I'm getting old, man. I don't know if I'm going to be able to sustain staying up this late, even for a playoff game. The Brewers are being exceptionally coy with their plan of attack for this game, and they're going to have an opener as their pitcher, and then what they do behind that, maybe it's Quinn Priester. They haven't alluded to it. They also haven't really tipped their hand yet about what Jackson Churio's status is. That was the one downside about what they did in game one, is that Churio tweaked his hamstring again after they were putting up 9 runs in the first 2 innings. So, you know me, known me for a long time. And this matchup has filled me with total dread. I know way too many Cubs fans. The Craig Counsell element of this is just gnawing at my soul. And so, because the Brewers have not done a lot of showing what they plan on doing with the pitching here today, I get the sense there's going to be a punchback here from a pretty good Cubs lineup. I don't know. I've conditioned myself to expect the absolute most painful results from this program, and I'm still anticipating that. If the series is split heading into Wednesday, that would not surprise me at all. I would have definitely loved to have seen, they put up 9 runs in the first 2 innings on Saturday and then went absolutely silent after that. And I would have liked to have seen a little bit of life moving forward, but they got the win. They need 2 more. Will they get it? Probably not.
All right, there's the doom and gloom Corey Gloor we all love. And he has explained in the past, I don't know the Midwest geography as well as others, but he went Brewers, Bucks, Bears. Has to do with the family somehow,
yes.
Right? The parents or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of the Bears, Commanders, Bears, next Monday night. We get to see Caleb Williams on national TV.
We want to do a FaceTime together and watch together?
I'll be doing sports trivia, so yeah, you can participate and watch the game next Monday.
Okay. Just put me up on on a screen.
Yeah. Live Corey Gloor reaction.
Yeah. No, that'll be. Well, will you have? Is Jaden Daniels back for your beloved?
Yes, he was back yesterday. Got a win in against the Chargers. So Jaden Daniels.
That shows what I do paying attention to the NFL. I went to my first ever Saints game yesterday, and they actually got a win. So that
did. You saw Spencer Rattler's first win. I think he was 0-10 before that.
He lost 10 straight as a starter. So, I mean, what a thrill that's going to be next Monday night for the national viewing audience. Because I remember not fondly, but hilariously, what happened this matchup last year. So I'm looking forward to the sequel.
Corey, we have 30 seconds left. Why are you not the play-by-play voice of the ECU Pirates?
I got a pretty good gig here.
And I'm happy for you, man. I am. And I'm upset. I'm upset we're not closer. But
I mean, you can come visit.
True. I'll do that one of these days.
I'll be in town on New Year's Eve this year.
All right. I'll be asleep by 9. Let's do there's a they're not a sponsor. We'll go find an old place to eat, old people, at 4:00 that afternoon and have dinner.
That sounds cute.
Corey, you're the man. Have a good call Thursday, buddy, and we'll talk to you basketball season.
Thank you, Clip. Thank you, Pirate Radio. Thank you, Pirate Nation.